Hey mamas, welcome to another episode of Confessions with a Small Biz Mama. And this week we are talking about sales. And I know for some of you, sales are so hard, but I want to make sales easier for you. So today we're going to talk about the biggest sales mistake that small business owners make. And when you stop making this mistake, sales get so much easier. Okay, so let's just dive right in. Okay. Now, listen, if you know somebody that struggles with sales, send them this episode, okay? Because this is like the easiest thing. It's so simple, but so many people get it wrong. And it's really interesting because it's really funny. So we're shopping for health insurance, okay? And I put something in a group in response to somebody's post saying that they were a health insurance broker, and asked them to contact me. And then I actually had two people who contacted me from it. And the first person made the mistake. The first person contacted me and told me how awesome they were and how amazing they were and how good they are at insurance and how they love helping people find the right solution and just all about them. The biggest mistake that small business owners make when it comes to sales is they talk too much and they don't listen. Like they feel that they have to sell themselves in order to get anybody to bite. The best salespeople in the entire world hardly ever talk about themselves. They are extremely good listeners. If you want to become a good salesperson, you have to learn to listen. And I know, it's interesting because one of the questions that I get when people finish bookkeeper training school and they start getting on whatever you want to call them, discovery calls, coffee chats, whatever you want to call them, people start to like freak out a little bit because they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. And it's very simple. Okay, you want to get the other person talking. You want to say as little as possible on that call. Okay, you want to be listening and taking notes. So make sure that I just got this great new notebook. So if you're watching the video, Starry Night. Okay. If you're not watching the video, I got this brand new Starry Night notebook and I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. It makes me so happy. But so what I want you to do when you get on that call is I want you to really, really be listening, okay? And I want you to have something where you can write down, right? You want to take lots of notes, but you should be getting them to talk. And so here's some questions that you can ask if you are a service provider. Okay, so if you're an accountant, a bookkeeper, if you are a virtual assistant, an executive assistant, if you're a graphic designer, if you're a funnel builder, if you're doing anything that is related to providing a service to another business, okay? And this will even work, for coaching and things like that. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Okay, that's a great question to start with because first of all, the reason I like that question is because it's super open-ended, right? And so you'll be able to see, based off of like the first sentence, right? Because when you think about that, like, where do you start, So for me, when somebody's like, tell me about yourself, I'm like, well, I am a small business mama and I have two businesses and I have a 3-year-old son and my husband's at home and helps me run those businesses. And we all live together in Florida. And, what the person's answer, is it all about business? Is it all about family and kind of business is kind of off in the background a little bit? Is it kind of a mix between the two? Right? And so you can tell a lot about a person by how they answer that question. So, you know, taking notes. If there's anything, you know, if there's anything in there, like they don't really talk about their business very much, then you can follow up with, well, tell me a little bit more about your business. What do you do? You can ask them who they work with. You can, you know, if you're you know, going to be a virtual assistant or a team member, you can ask, you know, how many team members do you have? You know, what does that look like? Most of these initial calls are really going to be about 15 to 20 minutes long. Okay. And so you don't have to fill up that call with lots of talking about you. Okay. And most people, when you get them talking about themselves, they will talk. Okay. For as long as you'll let them. So, you know, people ask me, you know, how am I going to sell myself on the discovery call if I don't talk? And really, for me, the point of the discovery call is to determine, do I want to work with this person? Right? Is there anything that kind of comes up in the pit of my stomach that goes, I don't think that's right. Right? The point of the discovery call is so that you can determine if you like this person enough to want to work with them. And if they like you enough to want to work with you. It's not about selling yourself. It's not about trying to prove that you're better than anybody else. And frankly, what I found, you know, from doing these kind of meetings and calls for almost 20 years, is that people don't want to talk about the business and the intricacies and that kind of thing. They want to get to know you a little bit, right? They want to see if you're a real person. And so by just kind of chit-chatting and having a conversation, you're going to make more headway than if you sit there and talk about yourself for, 15 minutes. The other thing too is that if you just sit there and talk about yourself for 15 minutes, you're not going to learn anything about this person to be able to put a quote together, right? What I recommend that my bookkeepers do is that they they send out a questionnaire before the call so that they can get the vital information they need, and then be able to follow up on anything during the call. Okay. So most of the call is going to be, chit chat. Tell me about your business. Tell me about you. I do like to ask when I'm on those calls, have you ever had a bookkeeper before? Right? Or have you ever had an accountant before? And if they have, say, would you mind telling me why you're looking for a new one? I always think that's a really good question to ask, because that is typically the question that if any response gives you that, like, not in your stomach, like, I don't know if I want to work with this person, it's going to be the answer to that question. Okay. And that's because, if you ever have a person like, well, I've had, 5 accountants in the last 4 years or 5 bookkeepers in the last 4 years. And, everyone has been, a mess. And that's kind of like, okay, this might be a difficult client to work with. Okay. Because if they've gotten rid of, 5 professionals in 4 years, it may not be the professionals. Just maybe, I don't know. So that's a really, really good one to ask. Okay. I typically do not put together proposals on these calls. These calls are really for us to get to know each other, to talk a little bit. And then at the end of the call, after you've asked them a little bit about, what are they looking for in, this relationship, What are they hoping to accomplish with this relationship? Then you say, well, you know, I've got some ideas. I have all your information from the questionnaire. I have, you know, if you have any questions, it's a good time to ask them at that point. And then say, okay, let me review everything that we've talked about. You know, you can reiterate to them, right, what you heard to make sure that that is correct, including the information from the questionnaire. You know, so it can be as simple as, you know, so it looks like to me that you're looking at your bookkeeping off your plate because you're a busy small business owner, you're a mom, and you don't want to use up your precious time doing bookkeeping. And so I'd love to be able to take that off your plate for you. So let me just, you know, I see here you've got 3 bank accounts and you've got 2 credit cards, and, you know, looks like you've got approximately 200 transactions a month. Okay. Yep. That's good. Okay. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put together a proposal for you. I'm going to send it to you in the next 24 hours. I'd love to have you take a look at it. And why don't we hop on a call later this week? I'll answer any questions you have about it. And then we can move forward. How does that sound? Okay. And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm not ready for a proposal. I don't know. You know, you say, well, you know, do you have some more questions that you'd like to ask? Right. And that's when you can start kind of having the discussion, determining how serious they are about the proposal. But your goal is to get permission to send a proposal and then to try to get another meeting together to finalize that proposal. Okay. If the person's like, well, how much do you charge? You know, say, well, you know, all my pricing is custom, you know, based on the number of accounts you have and the number of transactions. And so, you know, I just want to make sure I'm going to run all those numbers based on what you gave me so that I can put together, you know, the best possible price for you. You know, but you can say my pricing starts at X amount per month, and I would have that on your booking link. So whatever your minimum price is, you may want to have that, okay, on your booking page. The people, you know, somebody doesn't come in and go, oh, I thought you were going to charge me $15 a month, right? So if your minimum is 97 or 147, you want to have that somewhere so people can at least frame that piece. Because like I said, if they're looking for somebody from Fiverr that they're going to pay $15 a month to, that's not going to be you. Okay. At least if you work with me, that's not going to be you. So, but I don't want you to stop your progress on your business because you're freaked out about, you know, discovery calls. So don't talk about yourself. Keep the person talking. Make sure that you summarize everything that you know at the end of the call so that you're both on the same page, and then get permission to send a proposal. That's it. Okay. But you're going to get the information that you need to do the proposal in your questionnaire that you have them fill out before you get on the call. Okay. Really, the call is just to determine whether or not you're a good fit for one another. And so if you think about it that way, if you think about these calls as you are interviewing them, right, to see if you want to work with them, I think what that does is that really flips the call, right? Because I think a lot of times when we get on these calls, we think that the purpose of the call is to sell ourselves to the other person. When I get on those calls, the whole purpose of the call is for me to determine whether or not I want to work with you. And I know that sounds like, you know, some of you are like, wow, that sounds really conceited. I don't think so. Because there are some people that are just, we're not a good fit. We're just not. And frankly, like, I know I'm not a good fit for everybody. I'm kind of a straight shooter. And if you want somebody to hold your hand, probably not the right person for you. Because that's just not, I am like rah, go get them. Awesome. But I am not going to blow smoke up your butt. I'm just not. And those of you that are in bookkeeper training school, you know that, right? You totally know that. So, yeah, I am interviewing people just as much as they're interviewing me. Okay. And I think it's perfectly okay as a service provider. We have to do that, right? Because ultimately, especially in bookkeeping, this is not a short-term relationship, right? This is somebody that you are going to work with month in and month out, hopefully for years. And so you have to make sure that this is a good fit for both parties. So I hope that this helps you be a little bit more comfortable with the sales process. I hope that it makes the sales process seem a little bit less, salesy, slimy, whatever word you want to use. But just remember, really all you're doing is you're just having a conversation. So hopefully that is helpful for you. All right, mamas, if you like this episode, please, please, please share it out with those you know. You can go to smallbizmama.com and there are buttons that are going to make it super easy for you to share. You can pin it. You can share it on Facebook. You can share it on Twitter. You can share wherever you are. But that really helps new people find the podcast. And we really appreciate you. So thank you, mamas. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other and have an awesome day.
Thank you for listening to Small Biz Mama with Kristen Ingram. If you'd like to learn how to create more margin in your life, please visit us at smallbizmama.com. That's smallbizmama.com.